What it do, cuz? Welcome back to Put 'em On. I am Jourdain Fisher. You know this is the podcast where we put you on to comics, creatives, and more. Gang, go ahead and like and subscribe on YouTube if you're watching there. Leave us a rating and comments on podcasts, you know, the Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. Just tell people that this is the shit, all right? We're running a good show here, so let's let people know. Put them on to the show, all right? You know I'm not going to leave you with, some shitty show. I'm going to bring on a good guest. Today is no different, all right? Got on a very funny comedian, great writer, incredibly talented, Josh Johnson. What's going on, brother?
How you doing? Thanks for having me. I love how adversarial you are with the listener immediately.
You have
the
to
way
be
that you're
upfront.
like, you know, I wouldn't fuck you over.
Yeah, I would not fuck you over.
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
I'm like fresh into the podcast game.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing, from watching other podcasts and stuff that up top, people have to tell their listeners like, hey,
Yeah.
this is what we about.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and jump on board.
Okay.
And tell people what's up, like
Yeah.
we're a group effort here.
Uh-huh.
All right, like I'm putting you on, and then it's y'all's job to put everybody else on. All right, like I'm doing a service. This is a communal effort.
It is. I enjoy the fact that you begin the episode, like the last episode, somebody was like kind of talking to you sideways.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I come out with my full chest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Day's going good.
My day's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I still have to feed and walk the dog.
What kind of dog you got?
I have a Shiba Inu.
Are those like are those problem childs?
A little bit, yes. They are. I've really talked shit on cats my entire life, and now I have a dog that's very much like a cat.
Yeah.
He's very sweet though, so it's like a nice hybrid situation. But yeah, he's like very easygoing, which I'm thankful for, but very much like a cat in how much he wants to not be bothered or play.
What was this like your choice of dog? Because I know you're in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Was this like a team effort?
It was a team effort. So in the pandemic, my girlfriend and I were trying to get a dog, and we tried to rescue for months and months and months. And I think they've all been rescued. I think the problem is solved because we could not. It's like, and then that article came out, and I was so glad some of these places started getting put on blast. That article came out that it's hard to get a dog. It's hard to get a rescue dog than it is to get in Harvard.
Really?
Yeah. At least for that period of time when everybody was inside and everybody was trying to get a rescue dog. The applications, like you had to put down how much you made, how much you like, how much time you'd spend with a dog, which is clearly 24/7 since we're all inside.
But also, it's like me rescuing this dog. Whatever the situation is, whatever I make, it's gonna be better than the dog being in a shelter.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I can make $15 a day. I'm gonna treat this dog better than you.
I don't even know. Some of these places had to be getting paid money on the side. They had to.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know what the benefit is of only giving dogs to the most affluent people.
Yeah. I wonder if dogs look at other dogs like how humans look at each other, like, oh, your daddy rich.
Yeah.
That'd
be great. That'd be great if you sort of like in the dog park and your dog's always playing by himself. You're like, maybe he's antisocial. And it's like, nah, everybody knows he's a Nepo baby.
Right, yeah.
You're not going to come into this dog park like you're one of us.
Right, he's a pure breed. He knows all his siblings.
Yeah, you're going to play in the mud for a little while, but you go home and get cleaned.
Right, yeah. You got your house got like that separate dog shower thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you never get washed in the same tub that the owner's children get washed in.
Yeah.
That's like top tier dog, like elitism.
Yep.
When a dog's got its own shower, when the dog has its own shampoo, like station and everything. Yeah, I feel like I don't want to pick up the shit of a dog like that.
No.
I feel like he's living a better life than me.
Honestly, I think when some of these dogs go missing, it builds character. when they, and look, I want them all to come home, but every once in a while I'll see like a clearly rich person's dog missing.
Right.
Like clearly. And then even in the picture, like the picture is like an actual portrait, like it's too pristine.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, this is a rich person's dog, and the reward is too much.
Yeah, and they printed it in color.
Like everyone I know would give just an immeasurable amount of money to get their dog back who's lost their dog.
Yeah.
But when someone actually can, when it's like a $13K reward, I'm like, jeez.
Right.
And so honestly, for the little bit that dog is lost, I think it like opened its eyes a little bit.
Yeah, it studied abroad. It
did that whole undercover CEO thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I got beat up in the alley for a little bit.
It got treated like a real dog.
Right, yeah.
Like it got treated like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's, oh man. That'd be
Like a
full
pit bull
circle.
saw it loose, like, where you going, fam?
Yeah. Where you going, fam?
Like,
Huh?
nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, you don't hear me now.
Yeah.
Keeps walking. Oh, you don't hear me.
Oh, you crossing the street,
Oh,
okay.
he don't have ears.
Oh,
okay.
you gonna lick your balls, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, it's funny. I used to be like so like, not that I didn't give a shit about like dogs or anything like that, because we grew up like I had a dog growing up or whatever. But my parents split up and then they got rid of the dog. It was just like I lost everything. I lost everything, dog. I lost everything. It's like I lost.
Wait. So they split up
Mm-hmm.
and didn't even divide the dog.
Didn't even divide the dog. They were just like, well, if we can't be together, like the whole family's breaking up.
It's crazy that's
Yeah.
what they agreed on.
Yeah, I don't
They
even know.
agreed
Yeah,
to not have a dog together
right,
apart.
Right. Yeah. So they split up, and then eventually like got a cat or whatever. But like during my mom's second marriage, and they got a dog. They got a Shih Tzu named Sputter. Sputter's dope. I used to be annoyed by Sputter, but then I broke my leg when I was 24, and I was like bedridden at my parents' house. And dogs know when you're like in
when
pain.
you're like hurt.
Yeah, he would come up and lay on the side of my leg every day and just made sure like nobody fucked with me. Like he's a Shih Tzu, he couldn't do shit, but he gave me the companionship and the compassion where I was just like, all right, man.
Yeah.
Like I'll do anything for you now. Like at this point, like if you're gonna lay down,
That's very sweet.
Yeah. I was just like, all right, you got it.
Yeah.
Fine. Did you grow up with pets in Chicago?
No. So I actually was born and raised in Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
I started comedy in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And when I was a kid, my childhood dog actually passed away this year, which is crazy.
That's rough.
He lived to be, I think he was just shy of 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like hella long life.
Yo, he was like the Biden of dogs.
Yeah.
Right.
He was like, and it was crazy too, because at those last stages he couldn't really see, but he could like smell his food.
Yeah.
And so my mom would be putting his plate down.
Right.
Or maybe she'd make him a special. She started making him, once she realizes like this is this dog's last year.
Yeah.
She started making him like special meals all the time, because it's like, why not? He might as well taste whatever this is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whatever I got on me, like whatever nice meat this is, might
Yeah.
as well throw him some.
They always go blind.
They do. There's a lot of like, what do you call it, macular degeneration in dogs. But apparently a lot of dog health is connected to how clean their mouth is. So if you brush your dog's teeth all the time, they have less heart problems and less problems going senile and stuff.
See, that makes me feel like some type of way about the whole how clean the dog's mouth is, because white people have just been out here just putting on this myth that a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's, which based on what?
Only someone who's made out with a dog would say that.
Exactly,
Only
bro.
someone who's made out with a dog and made out with a person would be like, actually.
Right.
Actually?
What shitty mouth were you making out with?
Yeah.
Of a human that you were like, my dog's mouth is cleaner than this.
Yeah.
Like, and no other animal is getting that myth. Nobody's like, horses' mouths are cleaner. Like, if you
and
walk
horses don't lick their asshole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can't reach. Even a giraffe can't reach its own asshole.
Yeah.
Like, if you.
A giraffe probably does have the cleanest mouth. Because when you think about it, it's the furthest away from all the bad smells.
Everything.
And a lot of what makes breath bad is like you sleeping and mouth breathing and breathing in
Yeah.
whatever the environment is.
It's the closest to like the clean oxygen. It's up near trees, which are oxygen cleaners.
Yeah.
And it's just eating that.
Yeah.
So if there were gonna be an animal I'm gonna make out with, I'm gonna get a ladder and get it popping with that giraffe, dude.
Yeah.
Get some neck.
Seems way cleaner.
Way cleaner. Okay, so tell me about Louisiana. Okay, so what made you go from Louisiana to Chicago? Was it like college or what? Or like you just said?
I just wanted to start comedy, and I had always heard that Chicago was the best place to start. And so I went to college for design, for lighting design.
Lighting design?
Yeah, yeah.
What were you trying to do with that?
I was basically trying to do the lighting for Broadway musicals and dance concerts and stuff.
Were you a theater kid?
Yeah, but not an actor.
Okay.
So I was like
tech.
I was almost like an undercover theater kid because I was not singing.
Really?
I was not like I joined the improv team, and that was the most extroverted that I was. I was extroverted in that I would talk to people, but I wasn't this like breath of fresh air, like lighting up a room type of theater kid, if that makes sense.
You weren't annoying. Yo. Let's just keep it a buck, dude. Some theater kids come in, it's like, okay.
Yeah, no, we get it. You can hit the notes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
so no, I figured I could move to Chicago, and that would either be where I'd have a little bit less competition and maybe a better start at trying to get into a union, or I could start doing comedy, because I really moved there to start doing comedy, but I didn't tell anybody.
Okay, so were you just like, I mean, were you just taking it in all the time, like comedy? Like, were you just like, what was the spark? There's a whole gang fight of dogs going on outside right now.
Yeah, that was wild. Because you're not on the first floor.
Right, yeah.
So are they in the air?
You're right, yeah. Those dogs are on
where are those dogs coming from?
Bro, I don't know. I think there's got to be like a crack operation or something going on the third floor across the street from us.
That is so insane. Okay, so basically, I watched a lot of comedy growing up. I watched like Premium Blend. I'd watch back when they put JFL on TBS. I'd watch all of that. Dude. So the whole festival, everything that came on TBS, I would watch. And so that's actually maybe the first place I saw Bill Burr, because I've been a huge Bill Burr fan for as long as I've been a comedy fan.
Yes.
And he did a Shorties Watching Shorties, and he did JFL, and I think he maybe even did a Premium Blend, but I can't remember. But
he definitely had a Comedy Central Presents.
Yeah, I saw his Comedy Central Presents, and I saw the Shorties Watching Shorties, and I watched his JFL. I cannot remember, but Premium Blend was one of the first shows that I watched of comedy, but I had to wait. I had to basically there was this period of time where we didn't always have a lot of money, right?
Yeah,
so
same.
Then this was like the stars really aligned for this to happen. I don't even know if I would be who I am right now if this hadn't happened. Basically, we had, that cable routine that was like 3 months on, 6 months off. Yeah,
dude.
So we would have cable on, right?
Yes, God, that's the fucking worst too.
It's crazy
because you don't
as a
know
90s kid, because you're like, I think I know what. So I was so thankful that it took them so long to translate Dragon Ball Z, because I would not have cable. But then by the time I got cable again, they'd be restarting the series again. So then I would just be watching maybe the same saga twice, but then I get to catch up with the other kids who were so annoyed. They're like, oh, it was all reruns now. And it was like new to me.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I'm chilling, right?
Dude, that's the worst when you're like, it's like having a taste in your mouth for like your leftovers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get it and then it's fucking gone. Like somebody ate it. Like that's what it feels like.
Also, we don't have a fridge.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, dude, like when you're used to something, when you're watching cable or whatever for 3 months and then all of a sudden you come home and you're getting like, what are these bullshit channels? Like, there's a fishing channel, just a channel for fishing and then shopping and then just the regular local channel. And you're like, where'd it go? And they're like, not right now. And you're like, fuck me, dude.
It's so devastating. And I will say this too. the thing that ended up happening was I'd have comedy for, as long as I had cable. So I'd have Comedy Central, watch
Yeah.
that. And then I would not have cable, but I'd still have these like ways of watching something that I could still find humor in, even if it wasn't, even it could be the most unrelated to comedy thing. But because you're a kid and you're either like reading comics or reading books or watching TV, it's like when I was watching TV and we didn't have the cable, I was just kind of like, oh, Bush is funny. And then I think that got that almost like, instead of just consuming comedy nonstop and not applying any of it, I was almost consuming it and then taking a break from consuming it to apply it just in my own head, in my own thoughts.
Right.
And then watching it again when we got cable back, when it got turned back on. And now I'm seeing all new types of like of thoughts and traps and like storytelling and all these different things. And then it would be off again. And then I'd almost like, it is wild. It is wild that like Steve Buscemi looks like that. Like and just it was affecting how I thought and how I just digested everything around me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't consuming so much of it that I had a chance to get sick of it. I was always super excited to get cable back, to watch Dragon Ball Z and to watch comedy.
Yeah.
And I was like taking these long breaks where I was like applying all the ways it was changing my mind.
Yeah.
Because you're also growing up at the same time.
Right. Because you were what, like around that time? I mean, that's like middle school days, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Are you voicing these like interesting thoughts at all?
No, but I was writing them. I have like a few books worth of old jokes that like don't make any sense. Not only did they not make sense when I wrote them, when I look back, how some people look back at their old joke book and they're like embarrassed. I can't even be embarrassed because I don't know what I was talking about.
Right.
I'm actually that removed from logic in the jokes I was writing.
Yeah.
That I'm like, oh, it's you can't even be embarrassed because it doesn't make sense.
How, like, so you're like legit writing in notebooks at like 12, like already?
Yeah. So I was writing because also there was no place to the one of the few places that I got to enjoy any form of like live comedy. There was really, I think there was only two, because there was no comedy club where I grew up, and there was like no real venue that people would come and do comedy. It just was not happening.
Which is so interesting because New Orleans should be a place where there's like a comedy, because I know the music takes over. Like, I mean, it's such a music, or Louisiana is. I don't.
Yeah.
Wait, so are you growing up in New Orleans, or what part of Louisiana are you growing up?
I was in Alexandria.
Alexandria.
So there was nothing. There is some stuff in New Orleans, but the issue with New Orleans is that the thing driving the nightlife is mostly tourism.
Right.
And so then within that tourism are people there to drink outside.
Yeah.
They didn't fly from France to sit and listen.
Right. Of course.
So that's what kills a lot of, because people have tried many times to start clubs there.
Yeah.
To start weeklies there. And they don't all fail. There's stuff going on there, but like it's not bigger because of that main thing. When you would have to be only getting locals,
right,
to repeatedly come.
It's so interesting because there's so much foot traffic there.
Yeah.
Like, people are already drinking, have a good time. I know it's like you're going out and partying, but like people will go to like live music and all that kind of stuff. So there is an element of people willing to sit down in some capacity, but they're like not to pay attention that hard.
Yeah, not that closely.
Yeah, and it's weird because like, I mean, even they shot the Comedy Central specials down there for a little while too.
And I mean, I think a lot of those people. So, for instance, when I did my Comedy Central half hour, a lot of friends and family came out to support. But it's like, yeah, y'all live here,
right?
So there was no other. It wasn't like I could go to a Comedy Central taping or I could go to Tipitina's and listen to a band and drink. It's like, no, I live here, so I'm gonna go see my friend.
Right.
Is kind of why I think those shows went so well.
Yeah.
But I think I'll sum up that thought with you when you don't get to have something very often, it really becomes super important to you.
Yeah.
And so any chance to like even run a joke by a person, like I wasn't bitty when I was a kid, but I was like, do y'all think this is funny? I thought of this thing, blah, 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 and would tell people, like tell friends around lunch table and
Right.
stuff. And even in college would tell people that I was in like theater classes with, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's very funny. Or like, they're like, I don't really get it. Or so you're testing it out, not in an open mic way, but
Yeah.
just like in the actual
In
conversation.
conversation, I used to do that shit.
Yeah, and it's like the only two people I got to see be funny in real life, hard funny, like crazy funny, was this dude at my barbershop who was like killing. Like I don't even think I'm embarrassed for people who I've met who think they've killed, knowing what that dude did to just
Right.
regular people.
Yeah.
Like he had no mic, but he was telling a story that was so captivating. It had everyone in the rooms.
Yeah, you're good, you're
the TV's on.
Yes.
The TV is on, and people are lowering the volume on the TV to hear what he's saying and dying laughing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Dude, barbershop, like that's where it is. Like
Yeah.
some of the funniest people are in the bar. Some of the most opinionated
It's
people are in the barbershop.
It's like if someone mixed a comedy club with a cab.
Yes.
Because you know those stereotypes of like the cab driver's always super opinionated and like talking your ear off. It's like sometimes, but I feel like he was. I even asked him if he did comedy when I got old enough to like really understand what stand up was. I went to him for years for my haircuts, and I finally was like, "Have you ever done stand up?" It's like 13-year-old kid, and he's like. And he had one of those fast talking. He reminded me a little bit of Bernie Mac, but he didn't have the same register as Bernie.
Right.
So then,
he was up here with it.
yeah. He was like
Really?
not super high,
Yeah.
but he was way high. Like Bernie was like low, and
Yeah.
he was like middle of the road.
He was almost like Chris Tucker level.
Yeah, so he was like talking fast, but it was like average. And then I was like, "Have you ever done stand up?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "I stand up all the time. What are you talking about?" And he's like,
Right.
And like, I was like, "Stand up comedy." He's like, "What's that? What are you talking about?" I was like, "You know, stand up comedy, like Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, I never done that. None of that. I don't do that. No, keep your head still." Like it was
Keep your
just
head still.
it was
Yeah.
just one of those things where I was like, this person has no idea how funny he is, you know?
Right.
And then the other person was my grandma. My grandma was like wildly funny.
Yes.
My grandma was pretty good at impressions. And so then it was kind of crazy that this like, you know,
Yeah.
this like older lady is doing a really good voice for this man.
Really?
It didn't even look like it would. Sometimes it didn't even look like it was coming out of her mouth.
That's
How
interesting.
it is crazy, and it wasn't like her. She had a sense of humor, right? Like I think she was very funny, but her impressions were. Even now doing comedy, I'm jealous of my grandma's impressions of
Yeah.
like, and not even of famous people. It would just be like someone that we both met once.
Right.
But then, like, you know, we would be checking out at the grocery store, and a dude would have like this wild voice, just stupid,
Yeah.
just insane.
Yeah.
And then later on, we'd be having dinner, and my grandma would tell the story of us going to the grocery, and then she'd be like, and then he was like, "Oh yeah,"
Right, right.
And then I'm like, "Wow, how'd you hit that?"
Yeah.
like perfectly.
Wow, that's interesting because it's funny too. Like in comedy, like in our world, you don't really see many women that are impressionists.
You don't.
Yeah,
No.
like there's Melissa Villaseñor. I feel like she's the top tier, like
Yeah.
of it all, and she crushes it. Like she's so good. Like she does a Ash Ketchum voice where I'm like, what the fuck? Like how did you
Yeah.
pull that out? Like her Dolly Parton, like
Yeah.
everything she does, like as she wants to do vocally, it's like spot on. But most of the time you see it with, just guys like doing the impressions and shit. So even to have somebody like my grandparents never did it's their voice. I've never heard them not speak in their voice
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Like
That's how my granddad was, though. My granddad and like my other grandparents on my dad's side were like that.
Yeah.
It's like they're speaking like them at all times.
Yeah.
Even when they are making fun of a person, they still don't even think to do the impression. They're
Right.
just like, no, and then he
it's
said
still
it like
me.
this. Yeah.
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 Did you have good relationships with them, like your grandparents?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I think in a way, there was always something that felt important about those interactions to the point where you're like, I should write down how I feel right now, if that makes sense. And I think that also kept me writing constantly.
Yeah.
So that way, years later, when I'm in Chicago and I'm making the transition to stand-up, whether I think something or I feel something, I write it down, and then it usually becomes something. And it's not always great, but it's like when you are doing stand-up and you're giving your perspective, you're this is going to sound maybe redundant, but your perspective is either how you think or how you feel.
Right.
So, like, sometimes you are, like, I've done jokes where I'm like, I felt this way as soon as I heard it, but I actually know that this happened. And those, to me, are two different things. But how you think and how you feel are what you're communicating to an audience. And so by consistently, from the time I was, like, 11 or 12, writing down how I thought or how I felt about everything made it feel more seamless to be able to do that all day. And to be able to do it in mass for stand up.
See, that's very, like, I mean, to do that at like such a young age. I mean, to have like the introspection to write that stuff down, because I don't feel like most kids are just writing down their thoughts on like how they feel in the moment about stuff like that, unless they're going like, you know, through some, you know, moody phase. You know, we all have our moody phase or therapy. Yeah. But it's like, you know, how many kids are in therapy? Like, how many kids are like, our parents like sending their kids to therapy? You know, like where it's just like, Mom, I'm sad, and they're like, okay, yeah, like you got a roof over your head. You know, I take care. Like, what are you sad about? Like, So, you know, and if you're a white kid writing in a journal, it's like, all right, let's keep an eye on them. You know, the manifesto.
I feel like, what's the number of pages? And I might even do this on stage and ask an audience, because I've been doing a thing lately where I've been asking, before I even try to attempt the joke, I ask the audience the question genuinely, not even in a crowd work way. I like want to get a sense from them how they feel about it. And at what page number is it a manifesto? Because like every once in a while they'll be like, oh, this person did this act and they wrote a manifesto, and then you look at it and it's like 23 pages. I'm like, that doesn't hit.
My knee-jerk reaction that popped into my head immediately was 85. I don't know why 85, but I just feel like 85
is hard to get to if you're not trying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, excuse me. Like if you're like, that's a commitment. 85.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because a screenplay is 90.
Yeah.
So you're playing out all this in your mind.
Yeah. You got a movie in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know what the climax is of that movie. Like, you know, the resolution, all that shit. So I think 85 is where my heart goes. Because 50 is like, hey, this person journals. This person does it.
Yeah.
But 85, like in one fell swoop, like that's a messy stack of paper. 50 is manageable. 85 is like there's shit sliding. It's like, oh, wait, what's the order? There's crumples to it. There's coffee stain on it.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, hey, bro, you gotta bring that down a little bit, or separate these. Get a new notebook.
That's fair. I think too, you have to. I think one of the reasons I don't understand, it almost feels poetic when I look back at those old joke books, how like little of it I understand. Yeah. Because I think that is what would happen. If I went back in time and talked to my 13-year-old self, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Right, yes.
You know what I mean?
Nothing looks good when you read it back, though. Like, when you find, like, old notes of yours, like, when you're a child writing things, and you feel in that moment as a child like you're being profound.
Sure.
And then you read it with adult eyes, and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, this is...
I definitely feel that for every idea, but for my short stories, I do look back on a few of them, and I'm actually pretty proud, because I'm like, structurally, I think this is sound. Like, I think this still holds up. I'd change all the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue was of someone who hadn't talked to enough people yet.
Yeah. But you just have like an innate passion for writing then.
Yeah. I think that for me, writing almost, it's very close, but it almost supersedes performance. but not in a like I would still want to do stand up rather than just write. Like if someone told me I could make the same that I make doing stand up just writing like humorist essays,
Yeah.
I'd be like, nah, I'm just gonna do stand up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that the last piece of the puzzle is to express yourself to a bunch of people at one time and show them your thoughts and your feelings and have them respond to it in real. I think that that's a little bit more special than putting it in print and putting it out into the world. There are some things that just have to be that.
Yeah.
There are some things that don't work as stand up that it's like, no, if you write this as an essay, it'll hit.
Yeah.
And if you do it as stand up, it'll take too much explaining for people to really understand what you mean.
Yeah. Where you can feel the audience collectively being like, huh?
Yeah.
What do you?
And you're not laying a maze down in those scenarios, because sometimes you are. Sometimes you start out and you have the most insane premise you can think of, and people are like, what? And then you slowly walk them through the maze,
Right.
and then by the time they've solved the maze themselves, they're like, that was fun.
Right.
Because now I agree with you about this wild thing you said that I didn't agree with 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. Those can be fun. Like those things where you say like the premise up top and you feel the collective in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like tense.
Yeah.
And then even like in the punches up until like the main punch, like in the small ones, where people are like tittering, but they're kind of laughing, but they're still like, dude, I don't know if we should be doing this. And then you land it and they're like, okay.
Yeah. Do you ever see Inception?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, love that
So
movie. I remember going to the Grand Theater in our hometown and seeing that midnight. We used to go to like the midnight premieres of movies, like on the Thursday. On the Thursdays.
Yes,
that was like a big deal in our high school. Like we did Inception, Dark Knight. I remember I dressed up as the Joker for the Dark Knight, like Heath Ledger's Joker, and then I saw the girl that I had a crush on in line. And like I'm going into theater 5, she's going into theater 7. So I jump out of the line of theater 5 to go make sure that she sees what I look like. And I walk up to her and I go, hey. And she goes, hey. Like I'm like, I'm the Joker. And she's like, I see that. And I was like, all right, well, bye. And like I left and went back to my thinking that like dressing up as a serial killing clown would be the way into her heart.
It is the way into a different woman's heart.
Right, yeah. Some other woman that,
cosplays.
Yeah, cosplays or has more daddy issues than this person I was trying to go after.
Because like you weren't wrong. I think that's a thing that happens in a lot of dating, is that like people are like, oh, I did this thing and I shouldn't have done it. It's like, no, you just should have done it to a different person because they would have got it.
My heart was there. The intention was there.
Yeah.
Like this, it's like I'm wearing the flowers.
Because where'd you grow up again?
North Carolina.
Yeah, so if you had grown up in New York instead of North Carolina and you did that to the girl that you had a crush on who probably went to Comic-Con in New York,
right,
you would have killed it.
Yeah.
You would have killed
it. That's the shit.
Yeah.
Forget this
She'd
movie.
Like, oh my gosh, you got, and then even with your hair, wow, and the green. I mean,
well, let's not watch this movie. Let's go suck your dick now. That's how it would have played out if it was in a northeastern city, but not in the South.
Nah, not in the South.
Nah, baby.
But yeah, in the Inception, there's a thing where, do you remember when Leo's character is telling the student to make me a puzzle in 1 minute that takes 2 minutes to solve?
Yes.
And that's what it feels like all of stand-up is. Mm-hmm. It's like, and depending on what you're trying to do, I guess, because I think there are some very funny people who are just very good at writing jokes that have a nice structure and are very funny. But to really make a memorable experience, it's like you have to let people in. You can't just be the smartest person in the room and walk in, oh, I'm so smart, and then leave. It's like, that's not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
And then also, if everyone knows where every single joke is going, that's also not that fun.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to make puzzles that people can solve, but just they're not solving them ahead of you.
Right.
And then that is like ever since that scene changed how I felt about presentation to people. When he was like, make me a maze in 1 minute that takes 2 minutes to solve, I was like, that is what most of entertainment is trying to do.
Right.
You make a whole movie, and if someone can guess the end in the first 30 minutes, you haven't failed because they may still enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of a letdown. Or you tell someone a
Yeah.
story and they know what's going to happen way before you're done.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, I knew the person would have ended up being your dad.
Yes.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But if they are not ahead of you and you're waiting for them at the end,
Right.
and they solve it with you at the very end when you're both at the finish line together, it's a beautiful feeling.
Of course. Yeah. Like that twist is like the biggest payoff. Like,
Yeah.
so like when you're coming up with something new, like, are you approaching it that way? Cause like, I watch plenty of your stuff, and you've always got like a cool perspective on whether it's the current events going on, or like, you'll do this thing where you'll start off with like something topical or whatever, something that's going on, and you can tell that you've like read up on it. I'm assuming you've read up on like whatever it is you're doing, like you're researching it, like, and you'll find the angles there. But then after you're done with that, then it's like, and this is like in the realm of like a 15-minute set, then you'll go into like a personal anecdote about, a dating experience or like something in your childhood growing up or whatever. Like when you're going into those personal things, is it just, are you just approaching it like, well, this happened simply this way, but let's just really, expand upon it, like add in whatever, like how are you approaching the maze and just like a personal story? Like when you're sitting down writing or coming up with the idea.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to just a story from my life, I'll tell you what happened, and then it's filled with how I felt about it.
Yeah.
And that's actually what makes the story long, or I think what makes the story interesting. Because sometimes something will happen that's just funny.
Yeah.
And I could just tell you and be like, it's crazy, this thing happened. But if I'm also telling you what I was thinking while it was happening, and then giving you the backstory of like, also, I hadn't been on a date in like a year.
Right.
And then also give you like, well, I'm also not a great kisser.
Yeah.
And just adding all these details that are not actually that important to the story, but help color it. Now, all of a sudden, we have this like 7-minute story about a time this woman kissed me and like tried to dip me.
Right.
And it's like that in and of itself, at least to me, is a funny thing. It's a funny enough thing that I thought I'd share it with people. But everything that went in to me almost getting dipped, fighting the dip, like giving her a bad kiss because I was fighting the dip.
Right.
And then like also none of this is like verbal. We're not talking about what just happened, but we just both have these like feelings going into it. I think that is what makes it a maze, because I could just tell you what happened. It could be a straight line.
Right.
But if I take all these detours with, here's a detail that's like maybe not even important, but I think it helps color the whole experience. And here's another detail and another detail. Now I'm sidebarring so much that we're on a journey now.
Yeah,
you know
and you're getting, it's almost like, it's kind of like how Bob Ross would paint a literal picture, and he would, just put some blue on the thing, and he'd say, this is gonna be a waterfall, and you don't see it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he adds in a tree, and then there's depth, and you're like, holy shit. Like that looks like and then here's a bush, and then we're going to expand this river, put a mountain. You're like, holy fuck, dude, that's a waterfall right there. And I didn't see the waterfall the entire time.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm also not a good kisser. Here's a tree. That'll be our little secret.
Yeah.
Like I haven't been on a date in a long time. Here's one of the rocks or whatever. That's another little secret for us. That kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, dude. So did you get dipped?
No, okay, so I fought the dip pretty well.
But this really happened.
Yeah,
you went on a date.
Yeah. And she was like hella, because in the story, like in stand-up, I talk about how she was like lovely person, but she also had like straight up the biggest hands I've seen on a person.
Yeah.
Like it was like she had like these like You like when you actually meet a boxer,
Yeah.
and there's something a little different about his wrist to hand ratio,
Right.
And you're like, oh, I can see why you punch people. That's
Yeah.
the perfect job for these hands.
Yeah, your wrist has stabilizers.
Yeah, she had like very big hands. And then when we were kissing at the end of the date, we just went for like one kiss, and I could just feel her hand on the back of my head,
Dude.
and then like she was kissing me forward, and that's when I realized she was like trying to like dip me a little bit back.
Yeah.
And like we were both awkward. We were both very, very awkward.
How, are you like grunting in the kiss? Or are you like,
I'm trying my best to just keep it in the breath. So I'm sure my nose is blasting her.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure my nose is blasting her with air because I'm like, my core is on fire.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh.
right? Yeah.
It's devastating.
That's when like, as a man, you're like, listen, I'm not for toxic masculinity, but I have to use it right now.
I have to, honestly, the only thing, that's the thing that I think you've touched on something really important that I've talked about in sets before, but I haven't articulated that well, is there are moments where the only thing that made this thing work is being toxically masculine. So the only thing that actually, outside of proper form, the only thing that lets you pick up this heavy thing in front of a bunch of people is the idea that everyone will call you a bitch behind your back if you don't.
Exactly.
And so it's almost like if, like when you hear about those women that lift a car off their baby, but instead of a baby is ego.
Right.
And it's just like,
yeah. Yeah. Dude, because if you allow her to dip you, that's it.
Yeah, I say that in the story. I was like, if you get dipped on the first kiss, when y'all smash, your legs will be in the air.
Right.
Like that's like that to me is like established. Like
yeah, you give up all control in that relationship at that point. Like,
you better never even think about raising your voice.
Yeah, exactly.
You got dipped first kiss? Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
She'd be like, go wash some dishes. Like, I'm not washing it. Bitch, go wash the dishes. And she dips you. You'd be like, I guess I'll go wash the dishes.
Yeah.
You need a little, like, I feel like, it's so funny because we're in an era, like, we're trying to correct society, which we'll never have correction. Like, there's too many people involved to have correction. There's 8 billion minds involved with different, like, regional experiences and everything, where it's like, you'll never fully correct, to be this perfectly balanced Thanos society. But
and we're also not trying to do the same things.
We're none of us are trying to do the same things. But like, it's like when it comes to like something like toxic masculinity, you need it a little bit. There needs to be an element. There needs to be a drop of it in there. It's just like how like you look in the ingredients of like something where you're like, why the fuck did they put potassium? It's like, well, you just need a little bit to preserve the society. I will say
this, it's like toxic masculinity at its base form, if you got rid of all of it, it would be a lot like if someone came into your house, right? Yeah. Let's say it's a friend even. let's say it's a friend that you've invited over. Let's say it was me right now.
Yeah.
You invite me over to do the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And then you had left the door unlocked and didn't know it. So I just walked in.
Right.
And let's say you had a dog who I've never met before. And instead of me walking in, that dog freaking out and barking, it just walks up to be pet.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be mad at your dog because you invited me over, but a part of you would be like, you should have put up a little fight.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like something. Yeah.
Yeah. There needs to be something because, like, dude, if shit goes down, I want the toxic masculinity people around to help with the fight.
They're the only ones that actually already have guns.
Right. Because if the enemy is coming, and then there's a bunch of people going, well, how do you feel in this moment? Why do you want to? And then it's just like they're getting shot up. But you need the dude on your team that sees the enemy coming and then replays all the times his dad yelled at him, and then just like thinks in this moment, just like, I'm not a pussy today, and just fucking goes at it.
You know what it is? It just feels like Dexter. That's what all of like toxic masculinity feels like. It's like I can recognize all the ways in which it is not helpful, only hurtful, and doesn't make sense sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes there'll be a thing that I guess you can deem as toxic masculinity that I'm like, yeah, but why would anybody do that? That doesn't make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then every once in a while, there's like the level of snapping you have to do that keeps you or the people around you safe.
Yes.
That's actually, when you look back, it'll be uncalled for.
Yeah.
But you needed it in the moment because you couldn't assess the situation. Just like you said, just like in the example you just gave, it's like if a drunk dude approached you and your girl and like was kind of like what like being
Testing.
weird, like just like testing.
Yeah.
It's like maybe that's an indication where you don't even have to hit him,
right?
But you need to look crazy.
You have to assert dominance.
You have to get through. You have to get past drunk,
right,
to his inner person to be like, oh, I just don't want any of this,
right? Because she'll see it too. Like if she sees where it's just like, oh, he can't, then it's like, it's a wrap, dude. That's gonna be in the back of her. Yeah. I feel so bad. Like when you see like a fight on Twitter, and a dude gets
like rocked.
Yo, a dude gets knocked out in front of his girl.
Yeah.
Mind you, I've never been in a fight, but I feel so bad for those people because like if you get hit and not just like slumped, but if you like hitting shit on the way down, and you're stumbling, if you have like a Chris Paul ankle break like on the way down after you get hit, and your girl sees that and it's caught in 4K for the world to see on social media, and all her girlfriends see that, like they're gonna be talking about it in the group chat and they're like, girl, Mike got knocked out, and you're like, dog, it's over for you, bro.
And it's also, I think that's one of the things that I feel like modern society has not come up with a solution for. Mm-hmm. It's like if you're never in your life at any point gonna be toxic, but you do get knocked out and everyone thinks that you're a bitch for it. What's the middle ground here?
Yeah. And how do you like come back from that? Like how do you prove that you're still, the dude in the relationship?
It's not going to happen again.
Right, exactly.
Like not even you having to go get back your manhood. Just literally like, how do you prove that this won't happen every week now?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I do think that there's how do you put it? It's like the thing that I think is the biggest problem that we have as Americans are these like on every level, these like pendulums, and they swing really hard,
so hard.
And what's the like one of the, I don't even know if you would just call it ironic or what, but like you're aware of Kevin Samuels, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the craziest things that I kind of watched happen, and these are all like kind of nameless people to me. I don't know them well enough to be like, oh, and this person with this moment. But like, for any listener who doesn't know, Kevin Samuels was this guy who would like give a lot of dating advice on his Instagram Live in the pandemic, and he blew up because of it, because people were like actively trying to be on his show to get advice.
But the dating advice,
it'd be
so abrasive.
It would be really abrasive. Some of it would be like super out of pocket.
Right.
Every once in a while, he would say something where I'm like, well, anyone would have said that.
Right.
Like that thing. I'm like,
he just literally would never sugarcoat anything to you. Like if you're a woman, like this is not even me like giving an example that I'm thinking of. This is an example like that would literally be on the show. And this is what Kevin would say. Say like a woman would call in, she'd be like 43, 2 kids, which is normal, right? And then she'd be looking for a man, and Kevin, I'm 43, I have 2 kids. I don't know why I'm single. And he go, how much do you weigh?
Yeah, he would like, he would like go in immediately on like these things that no one was even thinking to apply to any situation.
Yeah, and the woman will go 250 pounds. He'd be like, so you a fat bitch? Like this was like legit, like what he was, and she'd be like, excuse me. He's like, no, you fat. Like that's like
it was really crazy.
He would not let her like,
super
and
crazy.
it's like, bro, like it's wild offensive, like to do that.
Yeah.
But then like he would break down. He'd be like, okay, so like you know, it's kind of like all that shit that, you know, has spawned from it now, where it's just like you see all these, you know, podcasts with guys where it's just like,
Yeah, all this
the
like
high
manosphere stuff.
value, you
Yeah.
know, women, all that kind of bullshit. But like, yeah, like it was very, people bought into it.
Yeah, the
you know.
reason I bring it up is that, you know, a lot of the women that I know hated his guts,
Yes,
right?
right, of course.
But then after he died, there was this odd thing that happened, and I don't know if you also caught on to it, where a lot of women essentially started giving his advice nearly verbatim,
Right.
but just without the "so you're a fat bitch,"
Right.
Like it was actually pretty crazy when
Yeah.
when you see it, and I think that is also an indication of like a pendulum swinging,
Yes.
where it's like there's this thing that we will do, and I'm sure that all cultures and all societies do it, but Americans just do it a bit quicker. So we're in hyperdrive, where if you read a history book, every culture has done these like sort of, whether you want to call them conservative and liberal swings, or just like sort of nationalist versus like globalist swings and stuff. But just as Americans, we do them drastic and quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like before you even know it, within your lifetime, before you even know it, things will have changed 5 times as far as like what's good,
Yeah.
what's patriotic, what's, you know,
Right.
like all these ways of being, like what's a man, all this stuff,
Yes.
right? And I just find that when I noticed there were women giving women Kevin Samuels type advice, I was like, oh, so we're at like the very tip of the pendulum.
Yes.
And it's going to swing in another direction.
Right.
Who knows when? But
Yeah.
I think that that's also what makes doing comedy interesting, because you're like, how can I survive both of the swings? If that makes sense. Like, how can I immediately not be dating myself from every word that I'm saying? Like, how can I speak to a more universal thing than just the sort of parameters that we speak in right now?
Right.
So that way someone listening to me who doesn't even necessarily have an indication of the story, but maybe I give them an understanding of what happened, will still vibe with what I'm saying way down the line. And I think that's like the next goal, because it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I don't even know if I'm doing it now.
Yeah, it's tough right now because especially like, you know, like we were saying before, like not everybody has the same idea and goal or like, you know, vision of what full acceptance is and, you know, being nice and all that kind of shit. So you've just got a lot of people yelling on behalf of the idea that they might not even hold, you know?
Yeah.
Where they're just like, oh, we're supposed to call this out, right? And it's like, I don't know, do you want to call it out? And they're like, I don't know if I want to call it out, but we're supposed to, right? So they just do it just because.
Yeah.
You know, just because they feel like it's trendy.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that one of the only people who I think is we are lucky enough to still have a lot of our like greats that are known as greats in comedy still right now. But I look at the way that Patrice is like watched and remembered and everything, and wonder if that same thing will apply to some of the people we consider great right now. I think it will.
Yeah.
But like you don't even know, because you won't be here for it.
Yeah. Dude, I miss Patrice, bro.
Yeah.
Like, he was so fucking funny. And like Patrice in like the podcast era would be hilarious. I mean, he was already like, you know, on the front end of, you know, the height of like the radio era.
Yeah.
With like OP and all those people. And he had his own thing going, Black Phillip, for a while, but like it would just be so interesting to see his takes on everything like nowadays, you know, especially with like how people like he'd be the type that like would be in trouble every other week, but he'd be like, man, I don't give a fuck. Like he just had that big fucking finger.
Well, it's also I think people mistake what trouble is now.
For sure.
Because like my thing is, if someone was genuinely shitty, like truly,
yes,
and there's no nuance around it, they were shitty, or they showed a wrinkle of their personality that is not only not ideal but like pretty ugly, and they want to apologize, I think that's not a bad thing. And I think that we as a people need to get better at accepting apologies, because then it's always the person who didn't do anything that knows exactly how to apologize. It's very annoying. It's like I've seen it in relationships. I've seen it online with people. I'd say someone is apologizing, and no person is perfect, so it's not going to be a perfect apology. But just the fact that they're doing it is like 90% of the battle.
Yeah.
So then when someone apologizes, like, I don't even believe them, or they're just apologizing for this reason, it's like, well, then what can they do?
What does a perfect apology look like?
Yeah, it truly does not exist.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be a hole you can poke in it, or you're going to poke holes at the motivation, or you're going to just be like, well, I don't even care. It's like, then what's the point of, I think that's why we saw so many people lean into the opposite of not apologizing, denying, like doubling down, all that stuff.
Yo, if you double down, because one, they'll be like, you're just apologizing so you can keep your career alive. It's like, yeah, nigga.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What the fuck? What the fuck did you expect? Like, this is what you wanted, right? Like, I gotta apologize. Or you can just go full Trump and just be like, hey, I said you were ugly.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. I'll say sorry, but it's disingenuous and you ugly, dude.
I'm gonna roll my eyes while I say sorry.
Right, yeah. Sorry, ugly motherfucker.
But like but okay, I had this conversation with someone, and I want to get your take, because they did not agree with what I was saying, but I have a feeling that they have a bias like against religion. But I'm like, at least religious people have like a blueprint to apologize. People may still not accept their apology, but they literally, depending on what religion you're talking about, there's usually literally a book that says how to fix what you did wrong.
Yeah.
And that way, you as a person can at least walk away being like, I did everything I was supposed to do.
Right.
Whereas in a sort of secular world, it's very difficult to like keep apologizing, and you mean, especially if you mean it. Only you can know if you mean it, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're religious or not religious, only you can know if you mean it. But at least when you go through the steps with like some sort of religious doctrine, there's some hope at the end of the tunnel for forgiveness.
Yeah.
When it comes to just like Twitter, there's no hope, because then if you get 100 people in a room, that are, let's say you get 100 Muslims in a room and ask them how a person should apologize and make amends for a transgression, they may not all have the same answer. But if they're all reading from the Quran, there's going to be some similarity in the spirit of their answer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's different sects of Islam, and I understand all that.
Yeah.
But then if you get 100 people in Brooklyn, that have no, like, you know, no semblance of like any religion or anything, and you ask them how someone should apologize and make amends for some transgression, I think that you wouldn't necessarily get 100 answers, but like, I think the answers would be so vastly different that they would take potentially a whole lifetime. And maybe it takes a whole lifetime.
Especially if it's in Brooklyn. I mean, come on. There's going to be a lot of people like, just being like, well, you know, can we, why do you have to use, hey, you guys in the apology? Can you use, you know, a more all-encompassing, you know, term to address us as individuals? We're not people, because some of us, you know, don't identify as people. So, like, it's just like, yeah, I don't know, bro. Like, because the religious, it depends. Like, if you're apologizing to the one, but that's hard too. Because if you're apologizing to the one religion, there's the different, like you said, there's the different sects of the religion. So there might be somebody of this religion that's like, oh, yeah, I get that. And then go, no, actually, in our denomination of it, we don't accept that, and we don't actually believe that that's wrong or whatever.
Yeah, so still difficult, but I think that there's a blueprint through text that I just don't, no matter what, it's going to come down to like you at the end feeling like you've done everything. Yeah. I think that one of the reasons that maybe even some religious people annoyingly easily forgive themselves is because there's a blueprint at play. Where they feel like, no, well, I literally did all the stuff. And then you as the person who maybe even happened to is like, that's not enough for me. And it's like, well, eventually I might not be able to please you, so I did everything I could possibly do
Right.
towards being able to forgive myself and believing some sort of higher power forgave me.
And I'm right with them.
Yeah.
So I may not be right with you.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, they're
And I also can keep trying to get right with you even after I've crossed whatever finish line towards forgiveness.
Yeah.
But I think that I guess my thing is when you don't even have that thread, it becomes like you're Kevin Hart apologizing for the comments that you made on Twitter in 2013 for the rest of your life, because the people who just found out about it, it's happening to them for the first time. That's actually why I think the internet is so reactionary. Not because people are just shitty all the time, is because if I just found out you did something, then it just now happened to me.
Right.
And it doesn't matter that there's another apology out there that I haven't seen yet. It just happened.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I deserve an apology right now because I just saw you go on this like horrible rant about how everyone in comedy is a piece of shit.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I thought we were friends. That's crazy.
Yeah. But in reality, everybody should be like, you late.
Yes, in reality,
you're just late.
When I show up mad,
Yeah.
more people should be like, oh, he apologized for that like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's an old video.
Yeah.
But what ends up actually happening?
Yeah.
What ends up happening is like I show up angry.
Right.
And no one says anything, and then you're like, oh, I apologized a while back.
Yeah.
And it's like,
do it again.
Apologize again.
Yeah.
Right now.
Which is dumb. I don't know. All that shit is fucking chaotic. But, it's like, why, I don't know. Just go after something that matters. But who cares? Okay, so we haven't even touched on, we'll do this in like the wrap up basically, but who gave you your first shot? Like who were because you started stand up what year?
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
All right, in Chicago.
Yeah.
Now, in stand up, you're doing the mics, all that kind of stuff. Where do you feel like who were some of the people that gave you your first opportunities where it's just like, all right, it's not a mic, like this is like I feel like this matters a little bit. And it doesn't have to be television or anything. It's just like who's the person that like really said, "Hey, you're good."
I guess Kyle Scanlon brought me to do a one-nighter with him. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like in Schaumburg, Illinois. Like it wasn't even that far out of Chicago.
Yeah.
But we rode together and he gave me a lot of advice on the ride.
Right.
And then I was doing 20, I think, to open for him. Mm-hmm. So that was a longer set than I normally did. And then Mary from Jokes and Notes also gave me my first feature weekend.
Okay.
And this was so chaotic. Let me see. I'm gonna take off my hoodie real quick.
Okay. This is big when you got disrobed to tell the story.
Okay. Yeah. Just because I might move a little bit. Okay. And I'm already hot. So
yeah. I'm surprised you've lasted this long in the hoodie.
Yeah, that's my bad. I'm horrible.
I was like, we got lights and shit. I was like, there's no way this dude's
it was a bad
lasting
idea.
in the hoodie.
Oh, okay. So basically, she gave me my first headlining weekend, and I've told this story before to friends and stuff like that. And I talked about it once on my podcast before, but it was like a huge deal.
Yeah,
because I'm about to be paid for a weekend of comedy. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
This is crazy, right?
It's a big deal when you get your first real money in comedy.
Yeah.
Like, it feels monumental, and it feels like the money, even if it's legally $500, it feels like $5,000 to you.
Because it opens the floodgates.
Right.
Like, now you can make money doing stand-up.
Yeah. You can call yourself a professional now.
Yeah. Even though you're still working at Trader Joe's.
Right.
So this blew my mind. Okay. I go up, I do my set, and I'm like, you know me. You didn't get to know me as I was like trying to get good. Mm-hmm. And so the way I described myself when I look back at those years was if I was just if I wasn't trying to do what Hannibal was doing, but I was bad at whatever I was doing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was trying to was trying to convey different ideas and like and keep to my sort of like what's the word for it? Keep sort of my subdued demeanor and everything, like not just run around and everything just because I'm doing a black club this weekend or whatever. And so someone was like, it's because someone had compared me to Hannibal at one point, and even back then, I was like, oh, but like, if I was like, Hannibal's very good,
Right.
I'm okay,
Right.
I could feel myself being okay when I was okay.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I tried to always have that level of either being hard, whether you want to call it being hard on yourself or being objective. I don't think it's possible to be objective, so I think I was being overly hard on myself to make a standard to raise myself to, right?
Right.
And so I get up there, 20 minutes, mind you, and the first 10 I'm killing.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, and I couldn't even believe I was killing because it felt like it was all coming too easy to have my first feature weekend and be killing in a club that I've only performed at like 3 times before this or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in the last 10 minutes, you could just see faces change where they were like, we trusted you.
Right.
And like, I'm being weird and I'm like, you know, all the stuff, right?
It's the worst for it to start off hot.
Yeah.
And then just lose it halfway through. Fuck, man.
Yeah. And so then I don't get booed.
Yeah.
But if I had 2 more minutes, I would have been.
They were at the cusp.
They had the bees on their lips.
They were doing warm-ups.
And so
they were stretching their legs to get the boo going.
Yeah, and I do my closer, and the closer goes slightly fine, and then I get off, and the host comes up, and you know how like, especially in black rooms, if you bomb, a host will roast you more to get the room back.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah. The host goes up, and he's like, you know what? Fuck y'all. And like, I think everyone was kind of like, huh. And he was
that's
like,
my reaction.
Yeah, and he was like, fuck y'all. You know, Josh, a young nigga out here trying to do his thing, and he tell y'all good jokes, and y'all don't even fucking get it. Like was fully on my side. It was insane. And he was like, young nigga got dreams. And then when somebody pop, you want to talk about, I saw him win, but you don't want to tell people how you acted win. And like, it was wild, right? And so then even in the back, I'm kind of like, no, I deserve some of it. like I'd start off good, that they tried to like me, and I did that, whatever, right?
Wow.
And then even the host was like, he was telling me later, he was like, you have good jokes, but you need to just like have energy with them. Like they're not just gonna come to you. You have to like take out all the stuff you've written, but like really perform it, right?
Yeah.
And then and I'm also worried about like getting taken off the schedule or something, because like if you bomb both shows, why would they bring you back for Saturday sort of thing? And so then, you know, I do the second show and I make my adjustments in between shows. I'm so sick off of like how poorly it went on the second half that I think I watched all of the all of the headliner set, but like I think I had to walk out at one point because I'm just like, it was so me,
dude.
It was like, because he's killing,
dog,
and I know they paid tickets to see him, but he's killing.
But it's still like,
right?
It's demoralizing when you like go through it and you're like, fuck, man, I fucked up. I feel like I suck, or they suck, or something.
Yeah.
And then you watch somebody go do it right.
Yeah.
And it's just, everything is just haymaker, haymaker, and the crowd is like losing their shit, and you're like, oh fuck, man, I have so much work to do.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like a mountain to climb.
And so I'm sick. Like I'm like actually sick over. And you know this is what's so crazy is that the first half went so well, but the second half went so bad that the whole thing is just a bomb. Like people see me after the show and they're not looking me in the eye.
They never remember how it starts. They always remember how it ends.
And so then I make my adjustments, everything. We do the second show. And the second show, I can honestly say I did really, really well.
Yeah.
Like really, the whole way through, really, really well. Like honestly, I was really proud of myself because I brought it top to bottom. I made the adjustment, almost like a boxer in between rounds.
Yeah.
Where it's like, watch out for the hook, and I start watch out for the hook.
You
and
put
then
the
I
Vaseline
get the
on the
knockout.
eyebrow.
Yeah. And then the host comes up after me, after I get off, and he's like, you know what? Fuck y'all. and he didn't watch my set, so he just assumed I bombed again.
Yo. That's just how he treats every feature comic.
He gives the same speech.
Holy shit.
He gives the identical speech because he assumes
Yeah.
I.
And they were like,
And so they're like confused.
They're
like,
like,
no,
we loved him.
we liked him. Like, I don't know.
yeah.
And I'm in the back being like, oh, no,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did good.
That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
It was
That's so funny.
the fact that he didn't.
Yo,
he
fuck
did-
y'all.
You know what? Fuck y'all. And like an identical speech.
That's crazy.
I was like, nah, I did good.
He's like an NPC that you keep coming up to.
Yeah.
And it gives the same.
Yeah.
That's funny. So this is how we always wrap the podcast. We always, after getting your story about who put you on, who gave you your shots, I like to pay it forward by asking the guests, who do you think people should be put on to? Like, who's somebody that you see, whether it's comedy, credit, whatever, who are you a fan of that people may not know that you think deserves like attention?
He's already popping to a certain degree, but I think you can't really give enough love to Eagle.
Yeah.
I feel like Eagle Wit is is writing incredible stuff, is incredibly smart. His charisma is like off the charts on stage. Like every once in a while you see a comic, the same way that as comics we get jealous of each other's writing.
Yeah.
I get jealous of Eagle's charisma because he's able to pull off stuff that I like wouldn't even think to try.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then Jared Waters is also really great.
Jared.
Jared's incredibly funny. And let me see. Let me see. I don't want to give the wrong handle.
Yeah.
So give me a quick second to shout them out properly.
Yeah. Eagle Wit, Jared Waters, two very funny dudes in the city. Is Eagle out of New York? Eagle's
in New York.
Yeah, I know, but like, was he born here? I feel like he was raised here.
I think so.
Yeah, Eagle's a New York kid. Jared's from Florida.
Yeah, Eagle Wit Official is Eagle's Instagram, and then
Jared is Mr. Jared Waters.
Yeah,
I think,
Jared
right?
is Mr. Jared Waters with that's an underscore, right?
Yeah, that's an underscore. A couple underscores.
But they post their jokes and they're incredible.
Yeah,
they're very, very funny.
Yeah, we'll get them on here. That's kind of the goal. Is like, with every person that whose names we get, eventually get them on the show as well. But yeah. Oh, what do you have coming up, bro? Anything you want to promote?
So I am going to be at the Bell House in New York. If you're in New York, November 18th. We've added a late show. Early show sold out.
Nice.
And then I'm going to be at Talia Hall in Chicago November 16th. And you can find tickets for those things at joshjohnsоncomedy.com. Or if you find me on the socials at Josh Johnson Comedy, you can just check my links, and they'll be in the links.
Fantastic.
But yeah.
Fantastic. Check out Josh online. Get tickets to those shows. I will also be in Seattle at Maidenbauer Theater. That'll be this coming week, September 21st. Then I got Chicago, the Comedy Bar, October 6th and 7th, and then Pittsburgh at Sunken Bus, October 21st. Thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Catch you later. Take it easy. Peace.